A major turning point of World War I was the deciphering of the Zimmermann message, a telegram sent by newly appointed German Foreign Minister Arthur Zimmermann to the German ambassador in Washington. In an effort to thwart detection, the message was sent via Sweden, but was intercepted by Allied intelligence on January 17, 1917, and sent to the infamous Room 40, the Admiralty's Cipher Bureau. As well, the message suggests the cooperation of Japan in the offensive against the U.S. Germany would provide military, political, and financial support. Up to this point in the war, U.S. President Wilson was resisting leading his nation into war, an act he referred to as a crime against civilization. He felt that he could best serve the world if he remained neutral and acted as a mediator rather than sending his nation's youth onto the bloody battlefields of Europe. America actively joined the Allied war effort in April 1917 and effectively turned the tide of history. For audiences who are interested in learning more about how codes were used in Allied military intelligence, connect with www.and3.com to try and crack Jack Garrison's codes sent via the British newspapers. An important yet often overlooked part in the war effort was played by the entertainer. In 1917, the YMCA was charged by General Pershing, for the sake of the troops' physical and moral well-being, to see to their amusement. To serve these ends, the YMCA called out to the entertainment community, and over 14,000 soldiers and professional theatrical artists responded and toured the camps of the American Expeditionary Forces in France. Over the course of the war, the YMCA's audiences exceeded an amazing 88 million soldiers. Elsie Janis, a U.S. vaudeville star and prominent YWCA performer, told a crowd of U.S. troops she entertained one night as they were on their way to the front. About 1,500 men were due to entertain at 8, but the general allowed them to come to the show. They had full equipment, tin hats and all. After the show, they marched to the train cheering and singing. The general thanked me and said I had put pep enough into them to make them walk right into Germany singing. Until her death in 1956, Miss Janis proudly carried the title, the Sweetheart of the AEF. In early March 1918, the last year of the First World War, peace was signed between Germany and Russia at Brest-Litovsk. The terms of the treaty were devastating. German troops and their allies were to control the whole of western Russia. Several weeks later, the German army began the Great Offensive on the Western Front to bring about the final defeat of Britain and France and to secure a German stranglehold over Europe and half of Asia. Germany's Kaiser Wilhelm would be forced to abdicate, and the newly appointed leaders left in his wake would be forced to sue for an armistice. The socialist politicians who were behind the signing of the armistice had stabbed Germany in the back in the eyes of German nationalists. The power lost in Germany sank deep roots into German society. The armistice, which was brought about by the Allies under the leadership of President Woodrow Wilson, was a truce, not a surrender. The meeting on an anonymous train in the Compiègne forest in France, where the armistice was signed, brought a clandestine group of German delegates to conference with key Allied leaders as a defeated and guilty enemy. In German cities, British and Allied POWs simply wandered out of imprisonment into the German streets. The military collapse in November 1918 plunged Germany into political chaos. There was massive looting and destruction in many German cities that had been undamaged until that point in the war. The streets of many German cities were in upheaval as worker committees took over the running of factories. Revolution was declared. German nationalists were terrified suddenly of the opportunity this upheaval presented for the spread of communism into Germany. The moderate left had no other course but to call on the remnants of the army to try and restore order. In months of patchy, vicious conflicts, the revolution was suppressed. Prodded by the watchful Allies, German politicians were able to arrive at a constitutional solution that the population would accept. Saddled with massive war debts and escalating government deficits, weakened by the loss of territory and resources, the German currency collapsed. Once the German mark collapsed completely, communist coups mounted again.
Please, help me find Dominic.
In Munich, General Ludendorff, one of the delegates who sought the armistice in 1918, attempted to overthrow the state government by a clumsy street protest in alliance with a young populist agitator called Adolf Hitler. The army and police restored order, that economic order could only be brought by the outside world, and so the stage for World War II was set. The Great War was a leap into the modern age, which unleashed an avalanche of the unmodern, accelerating the ascent to a world dominated by machines of unparalleled power, and at the same time precipitating the descent into a world of unparalleled brutality. The path of human progress fractured, the recognition that something terrible, something overwhelming, something irreversible had happened in the Great War explains its significance to those who lived through it, as well as its enduring significance for those born in its wake.